And
Mhm.
something you touched on that really strikes with me was when I had my breakdown in 2011 and my mental illness really, really amped up from the way it was when I was a kid in my 20s and even in my early 30s.
Mhm.
A lot of the things that I had leaned on is not coping mechanisms, but were the things that I found entertainment out of, things I found enjoyment out of, things I
Yeah.
found pleasure out of, like reading books and watching movies and,
Mhm.
and designing things and going out and exploring things.
Mhm.
The stimulus that had been supplying that for the majority of my life at that point was suddenly gone. And it was really, really, it was scary because it does leave you with that point of, well, if I can't even get any measure of what I liked about opening a book and reading it,
Mhm.
then what the heck am I going to do? What am I, what is the point of me existing if the things that had helped me define who I am and what I like
Mhm.
isn't there anymore? And that seems to me to be something that I would suspect that a lot of people struggle with, especially as they're just trying to kind of get the mental understanding of just what has happened to them and how much of an impact having the onset of depression or anxiety or PTSD or stuff like that can have on them. Are you seeing any indication of that either?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see that in like the desperation people have for going to the gym or going to church, right? Like the kind of those things that really provide like life, something to look forward to at the end of the day, or like going through a hard work week, just in the grind, looking forward to the weekend. And uh, when you lose that the ability to feel comfort, satisfaction, joy, uh, peace, in those things, then it is a scary place. It is a low place, because then um, it just speaks to like existential meaning, and purpose in life.
Yeah.
And it's um, when our daily routines get taken away, and these disruptions, folks getting laid off, um, and like, who am I? Like, what good am I? Um, and it's tough to go through that. Um, and one of the key things for making meaning and finding meaning and purpose in life is that connection with community. It's part of belonging. I mean, you can see this with our, the months of daily riots. Like, um, what, however stance you side you take with things, there's something powerful about belonging to something, a cause. um, I'm sure people during the protests and things like that, finding that thing, you feel like you're being heroic, right? You feel like you're taking a stand for something that's important. um sometimes it's destructive, but like that's the appeal, is finding that. um so, but it's helpful to kind kind of do the work of finding what are my core values, like what are the most important things in my life, and how do I express and live out those values more. For some people it's their faith, their religion. For some it's their art, um, or you know the and so finding a way to express who you are, um, and share yourself, your life, who you are, with other people. We have to we've had to get creative and kind of fight for that this year, and so much of it is online, right?
Right.
um, Now, um, yeah, it's neat. You're doing this podcast. You're starting this podcast. um,
I know, which is weird because to be honest, that was one of those things where I've been doing podcasting since 2005, and I had been doing different things at different projects, but there was that point where I especially after this last year when, circumstances forced me to not be employed anymore. And I was trying to think, okay, now what can I do? Or what am I going to do? And
Yeah.
and I've been down that road so many times. It was weird. I counted out the other day, and this is kind of to your point of putting yourself in a position where you start looking at that mindset and those intrusive thoughts start creeping in just as you're just doing everyday calculations and tabulations of just kind of checking to see where you're at. I realized since I was 16 years old, I've now had 27 jobs.
Wow.
And and to the idea of people who say, well, the reason why you're not successful is you don't work hard enough, or you're not this, or you're not that. And
Hmm.
I looked at that, and that was both, on the one hand, it was kind of like, okay, well, it shows me that I didn't quit. Something went bad. I had to find something, and I just kept going until I found something. But at the same time, it was also one of those of going, wow, I've had to grind that hard for that long. And when you start thinking about it that way, the whole notion of getting intrusive thoughts in your head and thinking that, you automatically look at that, okay, does that mean I actually succeeded in some way, or does that just amplify the sense of failure that I'm feeling
Hmm.
because of that, because I'm not where I wanted to be, because circumstances beyond my control, or because of things I did have control over, forced me to be in this situation now. And I'm to the point where emotionally I can't handle it as well as I did maybe when I was 16, 17, and more optimistic and thinking, hey, I've got my whole life ahead of me. Whereas now I'm a silver haired middle-aged white guy, and I'm like, well, now what the heck am I going to do?
Yeah.
It's weird how, and you and I are of similar ages, and I don't know if what your experience with this was, but when I was a kid, we didn't talk about depression. We didn't talk about mental illness. We just simply said, "Oh, that person's crazy," or "That person is nuts," or we never even bothered to want to find out why they were the way they were. We didn't talk about things like that. Part of the reason why my family dynamic broke down was because I couldn't talk to my mother about the things that I was feeling as a kid because I
Hmm.
couldn't articulate them. I couldn't define them. All I knew was I was feeling these really super intense things. And one of them, and it was something you touched on earlier, was anger. Going through, as a kid, going through physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, you know, all that stuff. When you're a kid, you're expected to be able to handle that stuff like you're an adult, but you don't have the physiological means to do that. Your brain hasn't formed yet. It's still in the process, and your emotions are shifting at every second. And one of the things that I had to come to real terms with, it was the first thing I talked about with my therapist. And I should say, for the point of record on this, even though Sovann and I have known each other for almost 10 years now, which is kind of crazy because this is the first time we really
Probably,
had a
yeah.
long conversation like this. Sovann is not my therapist. So even though he may bill me for the hour for this, I don't know, but that's his prerogative. But no, my therapist who I was seeing in Maine, where I lived last year, we did cognitive behavioral therapy, and we did, I think it was ABT, and I'm trying to remember what the actual acronym for that stands for. But I explained to her, I said, she said, well, you got to find a way to stop being angry, because that's my primary coping mechanism. Is just it was one of those where I don't like outwardly show it, but it was my way of staying motivated. And she said, well, you've got to figure out a way to shift to something else. And I told her straight out, I said, I don't know if I can do that, because the idea horrifies me. I don't know how to exist without that coping mechanism that's right there, that has helped fuel me through
Okay.
all the majority of my life. For
Right.
patients that you talk to, how much do you find that they're that apprehensive about it? Because I'm, like we all know, change is hard. Changing your mindset, changing your attitude, changing your physiological makeup, changing your mental makeup is really hard. And
Right.
I would suspect that a lot of people are in a similar mindset about their emotional state, thinking, I don't know if I have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. It's hard when it's both very important and you realize, like, I need to deal with this. It's affecting my work, it's affecting my relationships, it's affecting me. I'm miserable. Like, so it's super important. But then my ability to work on through these emotional things Like I didn't learn it. So that, the gap between how important it is and your like ability or your experience, that's tough. And that's where like group support or a therapist to kind of help guide you through, it can be really helpful to learn what you need to learn. But the anger, um, we talked about like habits and routines and rhythms for coping with stress. Sometimes we have emotional habits, and so like anger, it's kind of like, and I just thought of this as you were describing it. It's kind of like Iron Man, like his little core. um, and so like it empowered him, it fueled him, motivation, determination, gonna push through hard things, get knocked down, I'm gonna get back up and move on to the next job, do what I need to do. But like I think in one of the movies it was like starting to poison him.
Yeah.
And so it's both power but also a curse.
Yeah.
And it's getting like frustrated or mad enough about how things are, like you look in the mirror and like, oh man, I do not like this needs to change. Like it can be an okay start, but it's not sustainable, it's not healthy. So your therapist is absolutely right. um that being said, one of the hard things about this last year is sometimes there's no amount of positive self-talk that that makes what you're going through like okay.
Right.
Just the mess of certain aspects of our country and what we're dealing with right now. It's like, so part of letting go of anger is accepting reality. So like acceptance and commitment therapy is one thing of, uh, like there's comes to a point where things don't get better like just with more effort and more, beast mode, just grinding. Sometimes it's learning to know like limits, and accept certain things, accept when certain relatives are very stuck and ingrained in their ideology. um, and it's kind of like the serenity prayer thing of like, having the wisdom to do what you need to do, right? Or the courage, and then the serenity accepts the things that you can't change.
Right.
Right. And and then when you get to that point where like, oh man, I've done everything I can and it's just still not working out, it's it's transitions from like the white hot pain of anger to the softer side of just grief and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance. And with that, there comes more peace to focus on, not banging your head against the brick wall that is not going to change, but shifting your energy to, these are the things that I can change and influence and pour my life into, and good things can come out of those things. This is just a dead end. And even though I would like that to change, I can't for now. And maybe it's just for a season. It's not the right, I don't have the leadership or influence or power to change something like, broken workplaces or relationship.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean my life is over. I'm gonna find the thing that, I can bring good things, um, you know, a cause, a relationship, a group, um, that I can invest in, um, and bring joy and satisfaction.
Hey guys, Devin here. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and check out the links below for more great original content. Talk to you soon. Bye.